and welcome to your weekly podcast from Freestyle Media in partnership with the Magic 5, where you can get 15% off a pair of their custom fit goggles by clicking the link in the description to this episode. Do also check out Oxalt Strength and Conditioning. That's Nathan Oxford. He's a strength and conditioning coach. He's been working with athletes and swimmers for a long time now. He's been getting great results for his swimmers, both in and out of the water. So you can check his work out at www.oxalt.com. So this week, I'm joined by Sammy Wilson, a former GB artistic swimmer and now masters swimmer with Rushmore Royals. And by day, Sammy is now a movement and mobility coach. So welcome to the podcast, Sammy.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for having me.
No, you're welcome. It's great to have you on for sure. And I really like what you've got on your Instagram bio, the way that you kind of describe what you do. It sounds so wonderfully simple. And what you've written is, I help busy desk-bound professionals who feel sluggish in life to move easier and enjoy the things that they love. And I love that as a principle. And I guess, I don't know, is that just something that you try and tell yourself every day or when you're working with clients, is that kind of always the thing that you lead with?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, my whole sort of mission is to make it literally, like you said, to make it easy, to make it doable for like everyday people that, maybe spend a lot of time sat down, to just make exercise and moving a really easy and doable thing. And yeah, make it enjoyable, make it something that you kind of look forward to every day. Because I hate the idea that a lot of people see exercising as a chore. I just kind of want to get rid of that mindset, I guess, and make it like an enjoyable thing. So your body loves it, so you can love it too, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's interesting, we were talking just before we went, or before we started recording, and you said you've had a desk job before yourself once. You are a personal trainer. It's been something you've been doing for years, but you have had a desk job before. So did you yourself find that when you suddenly had a more sedentary lifestyle that maybe you started to experience some more aches and pains?
Yeah, I've had so many problems from working at a desk, and sort of like you said, I used to be a full-time artistic swimmer. When obviously that was so intense, like doing so much training, I stopped doing that and pretty much went straight into a desk job, and then all of a sudden started getting all these injuries. And for me, like for a while, it was actually so confusing. I was like, I've been doing this like mega intense training like 45 to 50 hours a week and kind of being injury free, and now I'm doing nothing. So like comparatively, my life should be a lot easier, and I'm suddenly getting all these like, I got like chronic back pain, like all like sort of niggles and stuff. And you know what? It was like blowing my mind. I was like, why is this happening? My life should be easier. But yeah, it can be so bad just sitting on your butt all day. It leads to so many like different problems. It can make you feel tired. Your spine just really doesn't like that kind of thing. So yeah, I really have experienced like aches and pains that have lasted a long time, like a chronic sort of issue just from sitting down all day. It's really not good for you.
No, I know. And I mean, this sounds weird, but it's in a way, it's probably a good thing that you've actually experienced that, because you can really relate, work with people, and but it's interesting because as I've said a few times on the podcast, used to play a lot of football. So I've always kind of done swimming and football. I don't really play too much football now, but I could play football 3-4 times a week and be absolutely fine. And I just kind of got to an age, like, I don't know, it was 28, 29, something like that. And like I'd play, like I remember specifically, I got to the point where I started just playing on a Wednesday night. And I just knew every Thursday morning I was going to be in pain without fail.
Really?
I'd wait. I knew that my lower back would ache. I knew that my ankles would just be a bit swollen. Played on like a really weird sort of pitch where it just wasn't really great for like running and stomping. And I just remember kind of thinking, oh God, I've gotten to that age now where there's, I'm just going to have problems. But maybe the problem was I just wasn't, there were things I wasn't doing or weren't doing beforehand, afterwards, that was kind of causing that, really, maybe.
Yeah, possibly. That's something I've sort of spoken about before, that people, not to put you on the spot, but a lot of people do blame it on age. And I've been guilty of this before. I think in the office I used to work at, people used to laugh at me because I'd get up from my chair and be like, oh, I'm so old. And obviously, I'm not that old comparatively, really. But we do blame it on age. And obviously age does play a factor. As you get older, it's going to be harder to maintain, that state where you're free of aches and pains. But there are so many things you can do to kind of help counteract that. And kind of sitting at a desk all day is probably the opposite to helpful. But yeah, there's so many exercises, movements you can do that will help you, especially as you do get older. That will help reduce that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So after working having a desk job, that you became a personal trainer, and that's something that you've been doing for quite a few years now?
Yeah, so I kind of did them at the same time a little bit. a little bit of personal training, but also working at a desk job. And now in the last year, that's when I've fully kind of gone into just being a personal trainer and hopefully sitting at a desk less.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm really interested in the idea that movement and mobility, I mean, certainly in my mind, it feels like it's probably the missing pillar for me, because when I think about my life, you know, in terms of like my job and then my hobbies and then my training, when I think about my training, it's swimming, it's going to the gym and strength training. And then I guess in a way I think about recovery, because I think about it from the point of view of like making sure that I get good sleep, you know, that I eat well and things like that. But it's those daily little small habits of like movement and mobility, especially because I do have a desk job. That's something I often don't think about. And I wonder if that's something you've experienced with a lot of people. Do you feel like that's a missing pillar for a lot of people?
Yeah, it is so commonly the missing thing. Like, I swim for a masters club, as you mentioned, and when we get there, like, so many of us are just like, oh, I'm tired, or like, I don't feel like doing it, or like, this hurts. And that is a result because most of us do spend the whole day sat at an office, and it's not ideal, really. If you've just been like sat on your butt all day, usually like hunched over, so in this like, you know, bad posture, and then turn up to swimming, usually not, you know, for masters, we're not as good as sort of the kids at like doing our pre-pool and that kind of thing. If you just sort of jump straight in and go into a tough set, firstly, you're so much more likely to like get an injury because your muscles aren't prepared. They've been like sort of in this relaxed, bad posture all day. So if you throw them straight into like an intense thing, they're like, not ready for that. Secondly, like your performance, like your training ability isn't going to be as good as it could be. So like if you think of your shoulders, for example, you really need those to be strong for swimming. But if you've been hunched over a desk all day, the back of your shoulders are going to be really like overstretched and weak. So when you get in the pool, they're not going to be ready. Also, if you think of things like your glutes, for example, if you've been sat down all day, again, they're just going to be really overstretched, really weak and lazy. I suffer with lazy glutes a lot from sitting down. You go and get in the pool and start trying to like even flutter kick, your kick's going to be so much less efficient, and you might end up using like your knees more, that kind of thing, because you just haven't moved all day and your body's not ready.
It's really interesting. And I actually find that when I go training now in the pool, the most painful part of my swim is the warm-up, because I always find that's when like my triceps and my shoulders like burn a lot, because they've gone from doing nothing for hours to suddenly, you know, repping and like stroking it out. And I always feel like really genuinely quite achy and sore in a warm-up. But then by the time I finish the warm-up, I have a good old stretch, have a drink, and then I'm ready to go. And then I feel great for the rest of the session. It's weird. I wonder if it is just that thing of like not doing pre-pool, for example, but also maybe the way that I've just spent my day just kind of sitting at a desk. And I'll always try and like head out for a walk at lunch and things like that. But, you know, maybe it's just that lack of preparation ahead of training. And that's why the warm-up always sucks for me.
Yeah, I think so. Your body does kind of like, for like, you know, it does kind of go to sleep a little bit, and obviously not literally, but if you think about your joints, like when you move them, they release like synovial fluid in. So the more you move, the more sort of lubricated and ready to go they do feel. So if you think about it, if you've been sat still all day, and you're probably better than most by going for a walk at lunch. A lot of people don't do that. But if you've literally not moved all day, you know, think of the average desk worker. You get up, you sit in your car, maybe for like up to an hour commuting to work. Then you sit in your office all day, probably sit down. I know my office used to work up. We used to sit on our asses watching TV at lunch. So like you'd still be sat down, then you'd go in the office again, maybe drive back home, maybe sit on the sofa, watch some TV. So you're literally sat down all day. And your joints and your muscles just really don't like that. Your body doesn't work well with that, and it all seizes up. You know, your joints feel creaky and stiff. And then it completely makes sense what you said, that once you do the warm up, that feels horrible because your joints are like trying to like relearn how to move and get into it. But it would be ideal to even not have that, right? And you probably would perform better if you were warmed up, and then the warm up could do its proper job rather than just awakening your joints.
That's very true. I spend 3 days a week, actually. I rent a desk at like a co-working space.
Oh, okay.
And it's really good because they've got a couple of desks there that can be standing desks. You can like, you know, move them up and down. So I do genuinely try to always spend a few hours of the day standing up while I work, and I always feel so much better for it. And I'm often sitting there thinking, I just can't really be bothered to stand up, and sometimes I don't. I always feel like I regret it if I don't do it. And something else that's interesting actually about how we're just not designed to sit down. I remember reading somewhere once that it's a bit of South Asian heritage that they often deep squat, and they'll
Yeah.
like sit there watching telly, for example, not sitting on a sofa. They'll just be sitting there in a deep squat position.
Do
I
they?
just,
Wow.
I know, but I think that's quite an old heritage thing, and I
Mhm.
just think it's amazing. Like, can you imagine like just sort of recommending that to a client now? Like, that sofa there, don't sit down there, just go next to it and just sit in a deep, and it would be fantastic. But it's really hard, isn't it? Because we've all got these behaviors and just habits that and just things that make it so easy for us to be lazy.
Mhm.
It's I can imagine it's a very difficult sell for people sometimes.
It is, yeah, like you say, almost like the world around us is designed for sitting down everywhere you go, just being lazy. But yeah, like you said, if we all could deep squat while we watch TV, that'd be amazing. But it's not realistic, is it really? But
Unfortunately,
maybe just little bits, maybe for 30 seconds while the the credits are rolling.
yeah,
Maybe you do the deep squat then. Just little bits would help, wouldn't they?
yeah. Well, we can start doing that if we're watching ITV and there's adverts every 15 minutes. In the ad
Yeah,
break, go and sit in deep squat. That could be the one.
yeah, you're
um,
onto
so,
something.
so, like, this is a very obvious question, really, but just to kind of really spell it out. When we talk about aches and pains, what are the most common aches and pains that you entail when you work with people?
So from people that are working at a desk, lower backs, so like myself, is really common because that's a muscle that just gets like compressed, it doesn't move, and that really relies on things like your glutes, hamstrings, those kind of muscles that will support it. And from sitting down, these get lazy. So if your glutes aren't working, your back's having to take the strain. We get a lot of like neck and upper shoulders, like upper back, that kind of thing. Because if you're like a laptop or if you've been on your phone all day, you sort of become into that hunched over position where you're like necks forward, your shoulders are hunched. So again, those muscles get really weak. So when we want to move them, that's not good. And obviously that can actually tie in because a really common injury in swimmers is in the shoulders. So if you're also working at a desk and doing that sort of hunched over thing, having a weak like lower back or like a weak core, along with those weak sort of stability muscles around your shoulders, that can put you in a really dangerous position then if you go and do like a hard swimming set,
Mm,
because it's putting your shoulders under a lot of strain.
yeah, for sure. But when you talk about obviously like people sitting at a desk and that
Mhm.
can obviously cause a lot of problems. Are there other kind of common things that you see from people? So besides sitting at a desk, are there, I don't know, just things that people, the way that people live their lives, maybe that is causing them some problems? So I'm thinking things like maybe hidden factors like diet. Can diet affect aches and pains?
It can, yeah, definitely. So having like a kind of anti-inflammatory diet, for example, can really help. Just eating like your fruits, your vegetables, your seeds, healthy things like that, make more of a difference than I think you give them credit for. And also just habits. I know you touched on this earlier, but things like getting a good amount of sleep, recovering between your training sessions, doing your stretching out, that kind of thing, they can all really help as well.
Mm.
There's a lot of different factors that go into just making you feel healthy. And energy is a big part of it as well. Like when you talk about aches and pains, a lot of people just jump to thinking that's about like injuries. Um, that's not even the case. You can feel sort of like just achy and groggy. I'm
Mm.
sure everyone's experienced this if you worked in an office and you leave after sitting all day and you just feel like horrible, don't you? You just feel like lethargic and you don't want to do anything. And that's all part of it as well.
I think that the not wanting to do anything, it's such a huge factor because I mean, I've experienced when there's been times where I've maybe not been at my most motivated with training, especially if I've not got a competition for a few months. I
Mhm.
might come home from work and just think, I just can't really be bothered to go swimming tonight. But there's
Yeah.
there's no reason why I can't go swimming. The
Mhm.
only reason is that I'm feeling lazy and lethargic. And
Yeah.
again, it's just because of the way that I live my life and the type of job that I do ends up causing that mindset, I suppose.
Mm.
And don't get me wrong, I don't often quit out of swimming. I
Mhm.
do still go, but quite often I will sit there and just think, can't be bothered. But it's purely because of that. I just the way the energy, I guess,
Yeah.
distribution in my body, which is really interesting. And
Mm.
talking about swimmers and I don't know how many swimmers specifically you've worked with as a movement and mobility coach, or maybe I know you're a master swimmer as well, so you're kind of surrounded by these people often anyway. But what are the most kind of common aches and pains that swimmers would feel? I mean, not shoulders is an obvious one, but is
Mm.
there anything else?
Yeah, shoulders, especially for like, freestyle fly, that kind of thing. Breaststrokers sometimes get like hip pain and knee pain, that kind of thing from the motion they're having to do. The back can be a thing as well from, especially people that do work at a desk and then go into swimming. But yeah, like you said, the shoulders is definitely the most common one. I think that's quite an obvious one because that's the thing we use the most.
Mm. But interestingly, do you think that swimmers are suffering? I mean, shoulders does feel like an overuse injury from a swimming point of view. But with these other things, do you feel like people maybe blame it on swimming, but actually it might be to do with the way they're living their life, and then swimming is kind of bringing out those problems. But actually, the problem is caused by the day-to-day routine.
Yeah, I think that's completely right. Yeah, I don't think it's ever fair to blame the exercise you're doing because if anything, that will help.
Yeah.
But yeah, it probably most likely is due to other stuff outside of it. So whether it's from sitting at a desk all day that they're sort of weak or tight, that kind of thing, or whether it's just that you're not doing the right exercises to strengthen those muscles. So if you don't do kind of any kind of strength and then just go straight into the pool and bash out, swimming as hard as you can, for every day or, an extended length of time, they're going to get sore because you haven't done that strength to support the joints. So it can be due to things like that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And something we talked about again earlier on was this idea that maybe swimming is perhaps one of the bad things about swimming is that it's very good at masking pain, because I've got friends who are, very keen runners. And for example, when their knee hurts, there's just nothing they can do about that. They can't go running. And it's not a case of like, oh, I'll try and run it off, and just warm my body up and then suddenly my knee will be okay. They'll be in pain throughout the entire run. So therefore it'll pull them back from running completely. Whereas I've found personally with myself for swimming, if I've, my lower back's hurt a bit or something like that, or even shoulder pain, again, you get through that warm up, you stretch out a bit, you get your body warmed up, and all of a sudden I feel fine. And then I'm able to train normally. I feel great. I get home and I start to seize up again, and I think, oh, cross, the problem's not gone. I thought it had. And so, do you feel like swimming is maybe a problem in that sense?
Yeah, 100%. It can depend on like the injury or what you've done to yourself. So some things, obviously, it's better to rest, and see a physiotherapist or whatever it is, just to treat it before you start moving it again. But certain things, if it is just due to your like muscles being stiff, you can feel it exactly like you felt it, but you get in the pool and it does feel better. And maybe that's an opportunity to afterwards then keep moving it, keep stretching it, because that's obviously what, if I listen to my body a lot. That's the way I look at it, to just listen to your body, because it's often knows yourself a lot more than you think you do.
Yeah.
And if you do movement and that makes it feel better, then that's often a sign that movement is what it needs. Again, to listen to your body. And if you're doing too much and that's making it hurt more, if it's hurting more afterwards, then maybe that's not a good sign. But if it likes movement, then yeah, listen to it.
I think listening to your body it's a good way of putting it. And I think also I'm thinking from a performance point of view, whether that's racing or even if it's just that you want to have a great training session, you really want to put it in. I've experienced myself, like if I've had a bit of lower back pain, for example, and I've gone to race, I'm still able to race. It's not holding me back completely from racing altogether, but it probably is just holding me back from completely going for it, because, and I don't always realize it at the time, but there's just something in the back of my mind that's saying, no, it's going to hurt if you go too hard. And then you go 99% instead of 100. And yeah, do you feel like being free from aches and pains is just such a benefit from a performance point of view?
It will be, yeah. And I felt that myself because, like I said, I have an ongoing sort of chronic back pain, and some days it's worse than others. And if it's having a bit of a bad day, there's just that thing in the back of my mind, like, yeah, if like exactly what you said, if you push hard, or if I like, tuck up too fast on a turn, for example, or it might twinge it might hurt. So you naturally, without even meaning to, you shy away from that because you don't want to experience pain, right? You try and avoid that if you can. So yeah, definitely, if you can train your body to a point where you have less aches and pains, or they're not severe or they're not there at the time, that can mentally make such a difference in a competition situation, that you can push yourself that little bit harder. Even if you tell yourself, I'm not scared of the pain, I just want to compete well, I want to get that gold medal, I don't care if it hurts. Deep down your brain, you have a protective mechanism, it's built into you. You will hold back that little bit because your body is scared and it doesn't want to get hurt.
That's just brought back a memory, actually. I remember a 100 fly last year, so 2022, and I had this kind of really weird injury that was it was caused from the gym from bench pressing, and it was basically like an inflamed sternum.
Oh,
Yeah, but just I can't remember the exact word for it, but obviously you've got your rib cage, and it was just like one of your literally one of your ribs, that where it attaches to the sternum became inflamed. And I remember feeling it actually when I bench pressed. I sort of almost heard a click, and I'm not entirely sure what I did, but then it was inflamed for quite a long time. But it was one of those things that came off and on, and I would often wake up in the morning with a bit of basically like chest pain, really, but like right down the middle. But again, if I warmed up and I was fine, I could sort of get through it. And I remember doing the 100 fly in racing once. And often with something like fly or breaststroke, when you're often bringing your head out of the water, you can end up swallowing some water.
yeah.
I kind of swallowed some water on the first 25 and tried to cough it out. And that cough just blew my chest up because obviously my windpipe is right next to my sternum. I just had the worst pain in my sternum trying to do this 100 fly.
Oh no! Oh no! That's horrible. I bet it wasn't a PB.
It was not a PB, and it was the worst race of my life just because of the pain.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack. It was so painful. I
You
mean,
kept going.
I wasn't because I knew what the injury was, but just needing to cough some water out just brought on this massive surge of pain from this, basically like a joint problem, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
That's mad.
I think that's a really good example of listening to your body and just not. But I mean, that was something that I tried to treat, and there were certain things I could do, but it was unfortunately one of those injuries you just kind of got to let it rest, and eventually it will go. And then one day it did. I can't remember when that day was, but I haven't felt the pain for probably, I don't know, 9 months now. So I assume it's gone.
Yeah. All better. All fixed.
Yeah, for sure. Can you give us an example then of when you've worked with an athlete or maybe just a person and how you freed them up of their aches and pains, and then you've been able to watch them just either live their life better or perform if it's an athletic sport that they do?
Yeah. So a lot of the people I work with are people that they almost think that they're doing everything right. So they sit in an office all day and then they have a sport. So a lot of master swimmers, example, are like this, that they'll do their sport maybe like 2-3 times a week, and they'll be like, right, I'm a really active person. I do my sport 2 or 3 times a week. Like, great. What they don't realize is that often isn't enough to counteract the negative effects of sitting at a desk all day. I myself, I used to train twice a day. I used to do this was when my back pain was at its worst. I used to swim in the mornings, go to work all day, and then go to the gym in the evening. So I'd do lots of exercise, and I was like, I'm such an active person. This can't be. And I remember physios telling me it was from sitting down in inactivity, and I was like, talking a load of rubbish. I'm fully active. So it's almost hard to believe sometimes when you see yourself as an active person. But the first stage of these people is just educating and saying that even if you do an hour of sport in the evening every day, that's not enough. We need to be moving throughout the day.
Yeah.
So it's just slotting in regular movement. And even if you are at a desk all day, I understand if you're in an office, you can't just get up and run around every hour. That's not a thing that a lot of offices allow, but just doing what you can. So one tip that I give all my clients pretty much is to set a timer on your phone. And so you can set that timer for whatever you think is manageable. So for some people that are really busy or in a really strict office, it might only be every couple of hours. If you're working from home or if you're more casual, it might be able to do every half an hour. But as often as you feel you can, that alarm goes off and you just get up and do something, whether it's just walking a lap around your office.
Yeah.
You might even go and offer everyone in your office a cup of tea and go and make a tea for everyone. That's moving. If you're in a more casual, I used to, my office was quite chill that I worked in. So I used to whip out my yoga mat and bash out some moves in the middle of the office.
That's definitely something people could do if they work from home.
You definitely could, yeah, 100%. And or even if you struggle to do any of those things, there's exercises you can even do from your chair. So just moving around, moving your body while you're still sat down. So you can be quite subtle about it. But just doing what you can when you can throughout the day will honestly make such a big difference.
Yeah.
And then maybe doing things like spending your lunch break rather than sitting down watching TV like I used to do. Something like you used to do, so you currently do. So I say either going for a walk or doing, so one thing I give them is 20-minute mobility workouts. So these are things that are really, really easy to fit into your lunch break or before you go to work or anything like that. So that's the stuff in work. And then outside of when you're not at your office, it's just trying to fit in, making sure you do a variety of balance exercises. So one of the things that's really common in athletes, so I work with a lot of CrossFit athletes, that's one of my things as well, also swimmers, they tend to just have that one thing they do. So swimmers, for example, will just, their one exercise will be swimming. And swimming is probably one of the best sports for like, you do use your whole body compared to like other things, but it's still not everything. So you find you're moving in a very single plane, especially if you're a specialist in like one stroke.
Yeah.
For example, if you just did like freestyle and fly, for example, you're only ever moving in that sort of forward motion. Your legs just sort of going up and down. There's not really anything in swimming that involves any kind of like, twisting or side bending. Even when we rotate, it's your whole body, it's from the hips. We're not really twisting as such. So there's so many movements that are lacking. So it's just making sure that you do a range of different movements. So whether that's through like, I don't know, yoga or mobility exercises or doing stuff in the gym, but just making sure that you're moving in as many ways as possible. And that's going to support your body to sort of move as a whole, like a supportive unit. If you just miss out certain things and only train certain movements, you are going to be lacking and putting yourself at more risk of injuries.
No, that's a really good point. And I liked the setting your alarm on your phone while you're at work thing. That's a really good idea. And without wish, I mentioned the washing a few weeks ago on this podcast, so I don't wish to sound like some domestic god or anything. But the one big mistake I once made was actually putting the washing out on the line, like during work. That it takes ages. Goodness sake, like, I was out there for like 40 minutes, and I thought, I'm getting nothing done here. Why is this taking so long? And I only became aware of how long a task it is because I had all this work to do. And I was like, this is taking so long. So yeah, I do not recommend putting your washing out as a movement tool if you're at work. Just saying. But no, otherwise, all very, very good tips for sure. So you've kind of touched on this anyway, but can you kind of give us some more examples then of like some simple things that we can do? So you talked about maybe just trying to move, so like walking around an office, for example. In terms of specifically like exercises or stretches or almost like poses that people can do. Say, for example, they are at home, so they've got the comfort of their own home. They don't have the embarrassment of trying to do this in the office. Yep. Can you give us an example? And again, I know it's quite hard because everybody's got their own aches and pains that would require different kind of move. But are there any kind of standard moves that you would say, this is a great thing to do, that's a great thing to do, because it kind of just frees up the whole body and just really gets the energy flowing around your body? Yeah,
that's a really common question. And as well, a lot of people ask like, oh, what's the one best exercise if you were to recommend? What's the best exercise you can do if I've only got time to do one? And my answer is it's a different exercise every time. So people are so set on being like, what's the one best thing? But you should move your body in as many ways as you can. Even if there was like one best exercise, say for example, for people working at a desk, I'd say you need to work on the back of your shoulders. So doing some kind of like retraction with your shoulders. I don't know, I'm acting it out. You probably can't see on the podcast. But some kind of like, a rowing motion, something like that that's working the back of shoulders is really good, because those are the ones that get really weak and lazy from sort of hunching over a desk all day. But again, if you were to just do that same exercise every day, it would create more problems than it would help, to be honest. You need to do a different movement every day. In terms of what you could do, you could look up, you can get, obviously I run these, so it's probably not great advertising for me, but you can get like free 20-minute yoga things on YouTube. Like they're everywhere. You can get them, so many different things you can do, and just pick a different one every day. That's what I'd say. Just get moving, and particularly through like your shoulders and your back. And maybe do focus on your problem area. So if you personally, for example, have a bad hip or a bad knee, make sure you're doing stuff that's going to support the muscles around that problem area. So if you've got a bad hip, you want to do lots of work on your glutes, your hip flexors, your core, that kind of thing. Just make it relevant to you. And that's where sort of having someone can actually help, if you need to get a personal trainer at your gym or someone online that can help have a bit more of a focus on you. But yeah, just moving your whole body. Make sure you twist, you bend, I can't think of all the words, but move your body in as many ways as you possibly can. Yeah.
A company I used to work for, actually, we worked with a guy called Richie Norton. So he's a former professional rugby player, and he's now like a movement coach, I suppose, similar to yourself. And he, you can kind of sign up to his, to his subscription, if you like. And one thing that he does a lot of is like morning flow, and like you can get a few of his videos on YouTube for free. And again, they're literally 5 to 10 minutes, but they just make you feel really good. And there's a lot of breathing, but there's a lot of just twisting and moving, and it's waking the body up in the morning. And I just always think, it's such a simple thing to do, isn't it? 5-10 minutes, but just I always opt to snooze, and it's I think that is the thing. You actually made this point earlier about the whole world is set up for us to just sit down all day, but I also think the whole world is kind of set up for us to be lazy generally, because actually, 5-10 minutes in the morning is not difficult, but I don't find myself doing it ever really, and I just think it would probably be so beneficial. I think another problem is that we want to see results straight away, and actually you don't really see results, do you, with movement and mobility? It's just a slow, progressive, generally feeling better kind of thing. It's not just like you're suddenly going to have a six-pack or whatever. And so, again, I think maybe that's a problem for people in terms of they do it for a couple of days and then they give up because they go, oh, this isn't working. But, it's that idea, isn't it, of like, if you brush your teeth once, what will happen? Or your teeth will fall out, because it's about brushing your teeth every day, twice a day for 2 minutes. And it's the motion of just doing it constantly that's the thing that helps.
Definitely. And something you mentioned there is about just like not feeling like it, not being able to motivate yourself to do it. And that's it almost works in like a vicious cycle sort of thing. So you don't feel like doing anything, therefore you don't do anything. Yeah. And then you feel like tired and lethargic throughout the day because your body wants to move, your brain wants movement. So it makes you feel tired and lethargic. And because of that, you then continue to not do anything. Like you say, like when you feel like you don't want to go to swimming in the evening, it's probably because you've had like a day sat on your backside doing nothing. Whereas if you just do one thing to just try and break out that cycle, I can almost guarantee you feel better for it. So if on those days you just made yourself go to the pool, or if you just get up and just do the 10-minute of yoga from YouTube, you'll then feel maybe not instantly, but after doing a few things, your body will feel better. You'll feel more energetic. You'll feel more lively. And then you're more likely to want to. Like you might be like, oh, you know what? I really fancy going to the gym this evening. So it's a vicious cycle, but it can also work for you. That if you start doing something, it's like a snowball. The rolling effect keeps going.
I feel like, the common phrase is often you never regret a workout. And a workout can mean something like just spending 5 minutes moving, can't it? And I think that's probably true, isn't it? And
it is.
I guess it's just having to remind yourself of that. Have you ever come across the phrase greasing the groove?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so that's it's a phrase I've heard a few times, and that's it's kind of used in the strength training world, but more like calisthenics, I suppose, like body weight training. And it's kind of used to say, like, if you've got a super busy life and you can't dedicate an hour, for example, to do a workout, or you just have a really busy week, so you think, oh, I'm not going to be able to make it to the gym this week or do a workout this week. You can do something called greasing the groove, which is like, let's say your workout would normally include 4 sets of press-ups to failure. What you do is, if you're working, and this goes back to what you said earlier about putting that alarm on your clock, every hour, get down and do 1 set slowly throughout the day. So you're still, in the end, doing the same volume. And I know it's obviously slightly different because you're not having that intense period of doing, say, 4 sets in one go. But it's the idea that you can still get your workout in just slowly throughout the day. So you can do a set of press-ups, then do another set in an hour's time, then do a set of, bodyweight squats 2 hours later, and you're just like greasing the groove, basically. So it kind of feels like a similar thing that you're suggesting here with just, every hour, every half hour, whatever it may be, just do something.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to use that, greasing the groove.
Yeah.
But yeah, it goes like one of my main things that I stand by is that doing something is always better than doing nothing. So even if, like you said, your idea of doing, 1 set every hour and you end up doing the same volume, even if you don't get to the same volume, even if you literally just do 1 set and that's it, that's still better than doing nothing. So just make it manageable for you, but just do what you can, and don't be like hard on yourself if it is a really busy day and you can't get it all done. As long as you've tried and done, fitted in what you can, and that's great, and that's going to be a lot better than if you didn't do anything.
Yeah, completely agree. So I did have a final question here, which is, again, aimed at swimmers, really, predominantly master swimmers, but any swimmer really. And the question is, like, what are the common principles that you'd recommend to swimmers in order to try and be as free as possible from aches and pains? But I feel like we've just been covering this for a while now. So without wishing to kind of repeat everything that you've said, can you just kind of very quickly summarize? So if you're somebody who maybe has a desk job or even, a job where you're on your feet, and then you try and train at night and you want to race in a couple of weekends' time, what's the best way for that person to be able to just, when they get to race day, they just feel great because they're free of aches and pains?
So I guess I did like a sort of top tip would just be to make it small and manageable. If you're currently not having the time to do anything, if you're just going from the desk to the pool and sort of feeling not, you're getting your stuff done, but it could be better. Start small and build up. So even if it's just doing your break every hour, or doing a 20-minute yoga routine twice a week, just start somewhere, and give yourself that feeling of getting like little wins. So every time you do something, be like, oh, be a bit proud of yourself. Yeah, I did that extra bit today. And don't feel like you're trying to pile on too much at once. That's a really big thing here. So obviously, after we've talked about this, people might think, oh gosh, she wants me to like go to the gym like 3 times a week and work on all my different muscles, and then also do yoga every day, do my mobility training, and they're like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So just be really careful not to overwhelm yourself. So like fully understand swimming is your main thing. That's where you have fun. And that's another point, actually. Make sure that the other stuff you do enjoy. So I'm saying do as many different kind of movements as you can. Obviously, you really enjoy swimming. That's why you do it. Like, for example, I absolutely hate running. Like, I can't stand it. And I think that's quite common among us, like, aquatic people.
Yeah.
So don't do something, even if, you think it's a different exercise, don't do something you hate, right? Like, because then it's not maintainable. You're going to probably give up. Like, if I was like, the best thing for my fitness is to go for a run every day, I'll probably do it for about 3 days and then you'll give up and you'll just do nothing.
Sure.
So make sure it's something that at least to some extent you enjoy, whether it's going to the gym and doing weights, or doing a slightly different sport that has different movement patterns, or doing like mobility, but just something you kind of enjoy. So you can be creative with what you're doing there. And yeah, I think the overall top theme is to just move in as many different ways as you can. Yeah. And that's going to really help. And especially if you do have any like niggles or aches and pains, make sure you are sort of strengthening around those areas. And yeah, just move your body, because it wants to move in all the different ways. That's the way it's designed to be. And if you don't use a certain type of movement, it's gonna sort of stiffen up like an old like creaky door that you haven't opened in ages. Yeah, it's gonna not want to open anymore because you haven't done that. And your joints are exactly the same. You need to keep moving them in the ways that they want to move for them to like be happy to keep doing that. That's kind of a weird example, but
no, it makes perfect sense. And there's something that you just said there that's really good, because it kind of goes back to that opening phrase that I use that is on your Instagram bio about helping people to move easy, to enjoy the things that they love. And you mentioned something a second ago about the idea of enjoying it. And I think, we all love swimming, but actually if we do have these aches and pains, we probably end up having a bit of a love-hate with it, because we love swimming, but we hate how it makes us feel sometimes because it hurts. Yeah. And I think that's it, isn't it? Is like those small, simple things that you can do every day will actually make you enjoy the thing that you love. And yeah, I think that's really key. So final question then, how can people sort of find out about your work? I know you've moved into online coaching now, so you've got an Instagram page. Anything else?
I do, yeah. I'm on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook, all under Pocket PT UK. And so you can find me there. I also have it's a free Facebook group, actually. And this is for people who maybe do spend a lot of time sat down. And it's just a little community, really, where we give each other little hints and tips. I post some stuff on there. You can post your questions, you can give tips to other people, and we'll all help each other out. It's called Active Thriving Professionals. It's free to join in, come and have a chat, and yeah, be part of the community.
Sounds fantastic. Well, I'll put the links to all of those things in the description to this episode. So just scroll down wherever you're listening to this, and you'll find those links, and so you can join the community. I'm definitely going to be joining it myself. But yeah, thank you very much, Sammy, for your time. That was a really lovely chat, and great to meet you, and hope to meet you in person soon.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for having me on.